meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons, the Transformers. Robots in disguise.
Hello and welcome to another episode of A Sip of Cinema, only on SCTV. Welcome everybody. This week we have 48 Hours starring Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte, but we'll get into that in a second. Hello to my eternal guest.
Hello,
Andrew.
and welcome.
Hello everybody. Hello everybody. What's that? Anyway,
Dr. Nick.
we have things to drink, so yeah. Let's get straight into it. So I'm actually better at doing this nowadays. Knob Creek 9, you can see it's 100 proof. So it gets the job done. It tastes like wood and leather. If you're into that type of thing, it's very nice. And what are you sipping on?
Jameson Black.
Oh, the Black Barrel.
Barrel.
Yes. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, this is a really good nose as well. The Knob Creek. Really spicy. This will put hair on your chest.
Got plenty on my chest and my back.
Oh, you got your pour? All right. Here's a toast to 48 Hours introduced us to some interesting gamer words back in the day that we didn't really understand, as we'll cover later on. But sort of introduced us to Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy in a way, considering how young we were when we first watched it. But hilarious movie, and we'll get into it. Here's to 48 Hours.
Cheers.
All right, so we'll start off like we do every week about our impressions or remembrances of the film back in the day when we first saw it. So my memory of the film isn't as, I suppose, clear as it was for other movies that we've discussed. I sort of just remember it as one of the first buddy comedies, probably the first buddy comedy we've ever seen. Well, I ever saw back then. And it sort of became a watershed moment in film history, in terms of creating this new genre of action film. A film that sort of combines action, comedy, and a sort of drama as well. So it's a unique time in cinema history, and 48 Hours is certainly a pioneer in that regard. So what was your memory of 48 Hours?
Yeah, I feel like it was probably our introduction to Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. I just remember there was a lot of swearing, and for some reason, I just remember the Roxanne song as well. But I've watched it again since maybe at least 10 years ago. I watched it again, and yeah, I just remember it being it's racist, it's sexist, it's vulgar, it's offensive, and that's what makes it like so funny and hilarious.
Yeah, we'll get into the as I mentioned, the gamer words. It's highly offensive for a lot of the snowflakes that are around these days. So Hollywood can never make a movie like this anymore. But the thing is, with this movie, like just about everybody gets roasted. Like they make fun of Indians, white people, black people. They don't really talk about Asians because it's not in there. But it doesn't discriminate, and it's not hateful. That's the impression I got. It's just employed for comedy. It sort of reminds me of Tropic Thunder as well, with Robert Downey Jr. in blackface. Like it's not offensive; it's just meant to be funny,
Yeah.
But we'll get into it. So, I guess the disclaimer for this episode is don't try not to get offended by certain words that you're going to hear during this episode. It's just a word. It's a sound we make with our mouths. It's not that serious. Okay. So try to relax and have a laugh, which is what we did watching the movie. So 48 Hours, released in 1982. I think this is the earliest movie that we've discussed up to this point. I don't think there was a movie earlier than 82, was there?
I don't think so. Not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, when I was thinking of this, I wasn't really sure when it was released. But 82 seems really, really, really early. So I was sort of surprised in that regard. But we're going to see some Arnold Schwarzenegger co-actors, cast members in this movie, which is pretty funny. Before we get there, 48 Hours was directed by Walter Hill. So he was prolific in Hollywood for a lot of his westerns, but he was also a writer-producer in Aliens from 1986, as we discussed. He also wrote the screenplay for The Getaway, starring Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen, which is another great film. He worked with what's his name? Richard Pryor in Brewster's Millions, and he directed The Long Riders, which is I think a 70s Western, as well as Red Heat, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jim Belushi. And he also worked on Deadwood, which I know
Oh,
is
really? Okay.
favorite shows and one of my favorite shows of all time. So yeah, he had a long sort of Hollywood career in country, not country, in westerns.
Uh,
It was written by Roger Spottiswoode, Walter Hill, and Larry Gross, and stars, as we mentioned, Nick Nolte, Eddie Murphy, Annette O'Toole as Nick Nolte's girlfriend. James Remar plays Gans, the main bad guy, and he was Dexter's father in the TV show Dexter, as you may
so
recall.
if I do recall, and if we're talking about people's parents or who played parents, the Annette O'Toole, she played Clark Kent's mother in Smallville. If you
Damn.
remember.
Now that you mention it, I do remember. Also, not starring, but he appears in it. Sonny Landham, aka Billy from Predator. He's also named Billy in this movie,
Billy
and
Bear.
he has the same knife. I don't know if you noticed that.
Is it the same knife? I thought the one
Near
in
the end, maybe not
Predator
exactly
was.
the same.
I thought it was longer, but it was
Very
definitely
similar.
a big knife.
Similar knife. It's sort of holding
It's
it in his right hand as well.
definitely a scalping knife.
And David Patrick Kelly, as you recall, the little guy from Commando, Sully from Commando.
Sully.
I like you, Sully. I'm gonna kill you last. All right, let's get into it. So, the film starts off on a farm. Well, it sort of looks like a farm, but it's a prison.
Railway tracks.
It's a bunch of prisoners working. Yeah, it looks like a farm, but it's actually a bunch of prisoners working on a railway track. We get the typical action 80s music in the background, saxophones and drums, and it's very familiar from other movies that we've
It's the
watched.
same as Commando's music, pretty much.
Same.
Similar.
It is
very
the same.
similar.
Yeah.
It's got that saxophone. It's very similar.
And the drums, the steel drum later on in the movie.
Yep.
I think during a car chase, it has the exactly the same steel drum melody as Commando. Yeah, so as I said, a bunch of prisoners working on the line, and one of them is Gans. And it's a very hot, dusty day. And then we see a blue pickup truck coming in from the distance, and it's Billy from Predator steps out of the truck. And all the prisoners, even the prison guard, starts making Indian jokes.
Yeah, it starts off like
And
that's the first line. First line of the movie is racist.
Yeah. And Gans keeps calling him Tonto. Of course, which is a reference to the Lone Ranger. But of course, Gans and Billy are in on it because Billy's there to spring Gans from the prison line. So Gans and Billy end up fighting in the mud, which gives Gans a chance to grab the gun. And he starts blasting the cops. It's a common theme in this movie, Gans just blasting at cops. Like he does it a few times. And as a result,
he does have little to say though. Like, he lets his gun do the talking most of the time.
Yeah, lets his gun do the talking. He doesn't want to go to jail. Let's put it that way. So of course all the prisoners escape, and that's the end of the scene. So we cut to Nick Nolte, Jack Cates. I think his second name is Cates. Jack Cates. He wakes up next to his girl at her place. And he doesn't have any clean shirts at his. So that sort of have this exchange between them, this banter, and he's like, I don't have any clean shirts at my place, whatever. It seems like he's just this typical, like, burnt out, hard-nosed cop who drinks too much, smokes too much, like has a potty mouth. He's just sort of this stereotype of that type of cop. Um, and then we sort of cuts back and forth between Jack and Gans. So Gans is on the phone somewhere in San Francisco with Billy, and he's asking about hookers. He's trying to get some hookers on the phone, and he says he wants an Indian one for Billy. But there's also, yeah,
the dead guy on the park bench that's just laying there next to Billy while he's reading the paper.
Yeah. And the dead guy with a bullet in his head. Yeah, and then the camera sort of focuses on the dead guy at the end of the scene. And then we cut back to Jack and his girl. And Jack's putting whiskey in his morning coffee as Elaine looks on in chagrin. Actually, let's I've got to move Galvatron. Galvatron is in the way. All right, let's have a look at these two. So from that picture, you wouldn't know what kind of relationship they have. But they sort of have an argument about how she doesn't even know who he is anymore. But he sort of softens up after that, and sort of hugs her because he knows it's going to be a crummy day. Like he hates like being a cop in San Francisco. He knows it's going to be a terrible day. And so he's sort of a bit grumpy, a bit crabby in the morning. But at the end of the day, like he really likes her. So it's nothing too personal. So he goes outside, lights up a cigar is it a cigar or a cigarette?
Cigarette.
A cigarette.
He gets in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he gets in his big blue Chevy convertible, which is a pretty cool car, but it's really beaten up really badly. And we see, and we sort of see the streets of San Francisco as he's driving through. It's sort of an interesting time capsule of early 80s California, San Francisco in this movie. And then we cut to Luther, the little guy from Commando. Him and his girlfriend look really shady. I think they're trying to sell something at a pawn shop. But as they're making their way out of the shop, they both get kidnapped by Gans, who wants the money that Reggie hit. So we get the impression that Reggie, Luther, and Gans were in on a job a while ago. And so maybe Reggie has access to the money. And so Gans is sort of just asking Luther about, what he knows about the money, thinking that he has it, he knows how to get it, which he actually does. And then Luther says, no, just give me till Monday, I'll get you the money. And then we cut to the precinct. And Jack's finally arrived at the precinct, and one of his cop buddies is Jonathan Banks. Mr. Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad. For many decades before. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. It is. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He's got.
Yeah, Ehrmantraut. Yeah. Yeah, he gets killed pretty early. And there's always some arguments going on in the precinct, which I noticed. Like they're always busting each other's balls in the precinct.
Did you also notice that there's like 1,000 cops just walking around in the precinct? There's just constantly waves of people just walking around, just in the backgrounds and just holding papers and looking busy. It's like they should be on the streets or something. It's like 100 of people in the room.
Yeah, that's what precincts were like back then. If you recall, RoboCop, like the precinct was also super busy with criminals and cops just everywhere. And this is no different. I'm trying to, yeah. So they go to a hotel. I think they're following up on a lead on a case. And they give the secretary of the hotel a hard time. The receptionist, they give her a hard time because they're looking for a guy named Paulson who's involved with some knife crime, I think. But we cut to one of the hotel rooms and it's Gans and it's watching a cartoon about some guy in space.
Space Kid. It's not something that we're familiar with, though.
I couldn't even Google what it was. And Gans's girl is like whining about something in the bathroom. Meanwhile, and so Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad, he goes up to see what's going on, while Jack is like downstairs. I said there's a couple of cops that come with Jack, but and so the two cops who come with Jack knock on Gans's door, who sort of freaks out and sort of gets the girl to speak to them at the door at gunpoint. And then Gans like knocks her out. And the rest of the hookers are told to behave. And so Gans comes out of a different door and again starts blasting a cop. And he actually kills one of the cops. And two cops are shot, but I think one cop dies at this stage. And then Gans and Billy, they run away. So it's up to Jack to save the day because they don't know he's down there. And so Jack is in hot pursuit, but Jack manages to knock out Gans. So we think he got him, but then Billy comes around the corner and almost blows his head off. And so Jack has to retreat really quickly. And so Billy tries to use a girl as a human shield, but Jack starts blasting away anyway, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, because Gans is like, he's not going to shoot. Yeah. And so he's just trigger happy.
Yeah. But that's foreshadowing for basically the end of the movie, which we'll get to later. And Ehrmantraut's gun is empty. And so we have sort of this Mexican standoff between Jack, Billy, and Gans.
God damn it, Jack, don't you do it!
Yeah, so pretty tense moment.
Shouldn't have thrown it straight to him. You should have just dropped it on the ground.
Yeah, that's what usually happens in movies. They sort of put it on the ground, like they put their hands up and then put it on the ground, you know. But he like tosses it. I was thinking that it's very dangerous to throw guns around. Like, you know, even if the hammer's not back, you know, anything can happen. It's not safe gun handling procedure. And so Billy goes off with his hostage and chucks her in the car. And so Gans suddenly he's very confident, so he swaggers up to Jack and blows away his partner, not his partner, but the other cop, Ehrmantraut, before trying to shoot Jack, but Jack like runs off. Back at the precinct, the cops are arguing with Jack about what just happened at the hotel. Because you know a couple of cops got shot and one died at least, or two died. And as you mentioned, I also wrote in my notes that the precinct is super busy, just people everywhere. And then Jack learns about Gans, so he's a known criminal and he questions one of the hookers who was with Gans, and one of the forensic guys finds a bag at the hotel, and tell Jack that Gans is using a 44 caliber pistol, which is pretty strong. And they pull up a file on the guys that were associated with Gans and Billy. And Reggie is one of them, but Reggie is not mentioned. We just see the file open, and if you're paying attention, you can see Reggie's picture in the file as an accomplice or an associate of the Gans and Billy gang. Yeah.
Also noticed that there's another detective that that Jack speaks to just for like a moment while he's in the precinct. And I don't know if you recognize him. He's also played probably the same, probably had the same role in Lethal Weapon. He played McClaskey.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Thibault, I think his surname is. He's like in it for like 30 seconds as well in Lethal Weapon.
Tasha McCaskey.
Yeah, McClaskey.
Oh, yeah. Now that you mention it, yeah. Yeah, and so Jack also gets an earful from the police captain, Hayden, who has one of the funniest scenes in the whole movie later on.
It's kind of unusual.
Trust me, that we're gonna watch.
It's kind of unusual how this precinct reacts to the death of cops. They don't seem like they've lost any morale or anything. They're just angry and loud and like in RoboCop, like everyone was like down and like that's another guy got blown away. Yeah. One of our own and this like it's not there's the emotion's completely different.
Yeah, I would argue it's different because in RoboCop there was some union drama in terms of how the cops needed to band together to change the union situation so that they can actually get compensation for their dangerous job.
I feel like another reason would be because this is like mostly a comedy. Like you don't want to like bring the audience down. Otherwise, if they're like acting all depressed and like bummed out, then the audience is, because at the same time they're still cracking jokes and giving each other shit. These cops,
they're just constantly busting balls.
It's still quite upbeat, the mood.
Yeah, for sure. Look forward to seeing the Hayden clip later on. But Jack is a bit of a loose cannon. We get the impression, like it's just hard-boiled, stereotypical, drunk cop on the beat, beaten down from decades of police work. And people are telling me he needs to rein it in. But he really wants to nail this guy Gans, and so he's willing to do whatever it takes. And so Jack goes down to the prison to see this guy named Reggie Hammond.
Half the streets for money. You don't even care if it's wrong or if it's right. Roxanne, you don't have to work for money. You don't have to say your body to the night. So put on a red light. Roxanne, put on a red.
Yeah, one thing I noticed is that you can't really talk into, like, the Walkman doesn't have a microphone. Like, I don't know how the feedback thing would work, but
maybe in '82 they did.
Yeah, maybe. So as you saw in that brief clip, we see Reggie singing Roxanne by the Police with a Walkman. I know I had a few Walkmans growing up. Firstly with the cassette tape and then a CD player. They're always like really cool Walkmans. Like there were iPods, like decades before iPods. Like there's really cool ones, cheap ones. Like they were a big thing back then.
Like I think that was the era when like people also walked around like big boom boxes
Oh yeah.
and like you needed to put a whole lot of I think it was was it D-size batteries in those or
Oh
something?
yeah,
You
yeah,
put
yeah,
like
yeah,
10
yeah.
or 12 batteries in just to power it, and that probably just lasts you like an hour, maybe half an hour, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've come a long way, technology.
I remember I had a boom box with 2 cassette players. So you
Yeah,
can
that
play a
was
cassette and then record on the other cassette deck and then make mixes, which is what I did. And then you could like record off the radio and stuff. It was pretty cool. And so so we saw the Jack pull off his headphones and like he drags Reggie out of the cell. So we learned that Reggie has only 6 months left on a 3-year bid. So not too bad. But it seems like Reggie's in jail, not a penitentiary, you know, if you understand the difference. Like he's not in some hardcore federal prison.
yeah.
And so Jack shows him the picture of the guy with the bullet in his head. And then Jack tells Reggie that Gans got busted out. And so he needs to get Reggie out of prison in exchange for his help nailing Gans. So basically, he's trying to make a deal with Reggie in order to get his help to nail Gans. Now Reggie's going on and on about he has stuff to protect on the streets. You know, he's trying to look out for his reputation. But then Jack, we learn that Jack sort of goes above the law in order to get Reggie out of jail for 48 hours. So he like forges some documents. And then we also learned that Reggie's wearing a $957 suit that he wore into the jail.
got busted in that suit.
Yeah. I mean, 957 in 1982 is an extraordinary amount of money. So that's an extremely expensive suit. And Jack doesn't want to hear his jive. Jack's like, we ain't got no deal. I own your ass. Yeah, I really like Nick Nolte's performance in this movie, by the way. Like he was a hard ass, but he was like lovable at the same time.
Yeah, it's good how like the relationship changes over that 48-hour period.
Yeah.
Because I guess they're strangers to each other. That's why Nick Nolte's such a hard ass. But like they learn a lot about each other over that period of time, and it's nice to see their chemistry and how they interact with each other through the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, so at this stage of the movie, they're not friends, they're partners in a way. They're like forced to get together. But to your point, I think both of them gained a lot of respect for the other one throughout the movie. Like neither one backed down, and that's always provides an opportunity to gain the respect of others. Like if you challenge another guy and they don't back down, that's you know, you got to give them respect. You got to give them respect, you know. And so neither of them back down, and they're both really skillful and tactical in their own way. And Reggie says, well, Reggie's like, oh, we got to go see Luther first. And so they drive out, and I want to share this picture of San Francisco traffic in the 80s. So good luck trying to decide where the lanes are, but it's sort of a snapshot of of history back in the day. All those gas guzzling cars. Yeah, but I think San Francisco sort of becomes a character in itself in this movie. It's such a like the way Walter Hill directed it. The setting becomes a character after a while.
Yeah.
It lends itself its own style to the film. So atmosphere and style. And so Reggie's like, oh yeah, Luther's likely to be packing heat. He's going to be armed. And so he wants some protection from Jack, but then Jack cuffs Reggie to the steering wheel.
Reggie's like, give me a gun, man. I'm not safe here.
Yeah.
He just cuffs him to the steering wheel.
And so Jack goes up to visit Luther. So Jack busts into the apartment, but also almost gets his head blown off again, this time by Luther. And so outside, Luther's running away past Jack's car, but then Reggie uses the car door to like destroy him. And so Luther crashes into the car door and flips. Wait, let's check it out.
What's happening, Luther? I'm sorry about the door, man. Did that hurt? It looked real painful when you slammed into it.
Hand me that gun or you're dead.
It's the truth.
Look, asshole, you just took a shot at me. I think you do know where Gans is.
Who gives a fuck what you think?
I don't know what you're smiling at, Watermelon. Your big move just turned out to be shit.
There's something about the actor that plays Luther. Like he can deliver like the funniest lines. That's so fun. And
he's like a really punchable bad guy.
Yeah.
He's like Arnie had like a good few rounds with him. Like ragdolled him. And yeah, Nick Nolte doing the same.
He's just
putting some dents in his car.
Smacks him in the face. Like point blank, bang, 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 bang. And then he calls Reggie and Watermelon. I just couldn't stop laughing at that point. Yeah, so and so Jack pulls Luther into the precinct and charges him with resisting arrest and possession of a concealed weapon. In the meantime, Reggie's like walking over to some ladies, probably some
women of the night.
Women of the night. But then Jack calls his girl and says he can't come over tonight because of work, and she's really pissed off. Which sort of becomes a theme in the movie between them. But Reggie, after all that, is really hungry. So Jack kindly enough gets him a candy bar for dinner, a Zagnut bar, which we never had in Australia.
Never got those.
No, but it looked pretty big. And so, yeah. And so Jack and Reggie are in the car, and it's at night. And we learn that Jack and Elaine are having relationship problems because she can't get a job based on her training, her qualifications. So they're sort of catching up it's sort of getting to know each other a bit more. But the next stop is the Mission District. And I like how Reggie says they're going to catch an Indian. Going to go to the Mission District to catch an Indian. But then Reggie wants to know more about Jack and his girl because he hasn't been with a girl for 3 years. But this is Jack and Reggie in the car. Like, all these like exterior shots in this movie are so well done. Like they're so artistic and interesting. The way the outdoor sections were filmed, it sort of makes the city look really um, majestic and um, interesting in a way. It's hard to describe.
I think majestic's a good word to describe it.
Yeah. And so in the Mission District, they go to a bar that Billy used to work in. Um, and so Reggie has to back up Jack while they go into the bar. It's sort of this redneck bar, just a bunch of white people. So we'll get the impression that they're racist. They don't like guys like Reggie. But interesting that Reggie and Jack have this conversation before they go in. And we get, and the philosophy comes up that attitude and experience is what gets you through in this job or these situations. But then Reggie's
The
like,
bullshit and experience.
yeah.
That's what they call it.
So, but Reggie's like, I know guys like this. I've been in places like this, and so he wants Jack to give him a chance to show him what he's got. You know, he can get the information, but at the same time, he wants a reward, and the reward Reggie wants is a woman. He wants to, you know,
Get some
as
trim.
Reggie get some trim if he gets the information. But if he loses, Reggie has to tell Jack everything he knows. And so he says something about experience and bullshit, and then Reggie's like, "Come on and experience some of my bullshit." like the script is so well done, like it's so clever. Some of the lines.
I think this is probably the most memorable scene of the movie. This the hillbilly bar scene.
It's one of the most memorable scenes in Eddie Murphy's entire career. I think it's I think it's the scene that actually made him a superstar in a way. Like if you look back at his career, but it's sort of a historical scene, just in Hollywood in general, especially for a superstar like Eddie Murphy, who nobody really knew back
I
then.
think he's still SNL at the moment. I mean, at that time.
Yeah. So it's coming up. It's a really really important scene, but also extremely funny. One of the funniest scenes I've ever seen. And so Reggie sort of swaggers in. He tries to order a vodka, but the barman says maybe it's already racist and funny. The barman's like, maybe you'll like a black Russian.
Mhm.
And then Reggie like flashes his Jack's police badge just randomly. You can watch it. Like I can describe it, but you know, I think watching it will be more interesting.
Never heard of Billy Bear, huh? Look at here. Fucking heard of him now, man?
This is our place. I don't give a shit what the fuck your badge says, nigga.
Oh, you're a big tough country faggot, ain't you? You out of your fucking mind, man? Nothing against that fucking pole. You loaded here. Where the fuck did you get this?
Tax refund.
It's bullshit. Too fucking stupid to have a job.
I mean, all the clips that I make for the stream is between 20 and 30 seconds. Like I could have done at least 2 minutes on this scene easily. So if I would recommend anyone just to watch the scene on YouTube unedited. It's just extremely funny. But we see Reggie sort of working in the bar, working everybody. He sort of walks around with this swagger, this confidence. And he sort of steals a gun halfway through. He pats a guy down and like takes his gun. Yeah, and so Jack's actually in the bar as well watching it, but Jack's pretending to be like a regular guy. Like Jack doesn't come in pretending to like declaring that he's a cop as well. Like he's just watching. He's just here for the show, basically. And the guy, one of the guys, tries to run away, but turns out he's on patrol, so he just has to sit down. And so Reggie is walking around and saying, like, I hate white people, especially rednecks.
You people are rednecks. That means I'm enjoying this shit.
Yeah. So one guy has a knife, one guy has a gun, because he's patting them down. Then eventually the barman gives up the information about Billy's girl's place. And so Reggie takes it. This is funny. Like Reggie takes the barman's hat and puts it on. And he pretends to be a cowboy. There's a new sheriff in town. And then outside, Jack's like, "Oh, yeah, give me the gun." He saw Reggie take the gun off the redneck, and then Reggie gives it up. You can see that Reggie's impressed that Jack actually noticed that he swiped the gun.
I just want to go off topic for a second. You remember when Jordan and Magic and Bird, they had this conversation, and Jordan, I think they played. This was the Olympics, and his team won and beat Magic and Bird's team. Yeah. And so he came into I think they were having drinks or something, and he came in and said, "There's a new sheriff in town." I wonder if it's from that line from 48 Hours.
It could be. Although I thought "there's a new sheriff in town" is just,
it could just be a Wild West phrase, yeah.
Country Wild West thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those you're saying the 92 Dream Team, the 92 Dream Team had these legendary scrimmages that were never filmed, but people just talk about, it's sort of passed down through history.
The greatest games never seen.
Exactly, yeah. No YouTube back then or social media. And so since Reggie did such a great job, he wants a gun as a reward.
I want to take the trim, but give me a gun.
So Jack unloads the gun, gives it back to him. Then Reggie gets so upset it throws the gun. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so they have to follow the lead of the Billy's ex-girlfriend. And so they go to the two women, the two dykes, as Reggie calls them. They go into their
apartment. I was surprised that they didn't make any of those, crack any of those jokes while they were there. Because the girls, they're half naked, and
yeah,
they seem to be alone together, and
yeah,
they didn't make any reference to that. Only when they left, they Reggie calls them dykes. But yeah, I thought they would have, because watching it again, I was expecting something.
Yeah. Yeah, one of them has short lesbian hair as well. It's yeah, so they go up to the apartment. They sort of peek through the window. And the women are watching aerobics on the TV. And the Jack
it's at nighttime as well.
At night, yeah. They're real dykes.
Reggie's television's changed since I've been a slammer.
So Jack busts in with his gun drawn, but one of the women has a gun. The short-haired woman, she has a gun. And so she draws down on Jack, and then the other girl, the blonde girl, comes around the corner and beats Reggie in the arm with a baseball bat.
You can tell she doesn't have sound effect.
Yeah, but you can tell she doesn't have any strength because he barely moves. He's just "Oh, what just happened?" And the girl with the gun, the short-haired girl, she doesn't believe that they're cops, which is reasonable, I think. And the blonde girl's about to call the cops, but Jack tells them to shut up and sit down, basically. And he asks them about Billy Bear. And then the blonde girl gets angry at the mention of Billy Bear. Turns out they really hate him because he sort of comes through and just leaves again. This is funny. Reggie makes a proposition to the two women. She tells them to F off. That's funny. and the girls don't want any more of Billy Bear's macho bullshit. And so they have to leave. So here's another great external shot in the film. So as they're leaving the apartment, you sort of see the camera filming through.
So this is the Chinatown, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's sort of filming through the neon and the signs of the lanterns of Chinatown, which is really interesting. Because they have to come back through this section of town later in the film, as we'll see. But yeah, another great example of the external shots, some of the cinematography in the movie. You wouldn't expect such interesting cinematography in a buddy cop movie, but there you go. That's what happens when you have a professional making the film, a professional artist. And so they both walk away. They realize they're no closer to catching Gans because, this lead of the two dykes, just nothing. They got nothing out of it. Another funny line. Jack calls Reggie a spear chucker. A spear chucker with a number on his prison fatigues. And so they decide. Actually, Jack decides that it's time to fight.
Are you gonna kick my ass now?
Let me explain one thing to you, nigger. I fight dirty.
Yeah, the ending of the fight kind of reminds me of Rocky. Since we were doing Rocky last week. Reggie getting beat up like Apollo Creed at the end of his fight.
I thought Reggie kind of had Jack, like in the middle of that fight, like throwing his jabs, and
yeah,
then Jack just like spear tackles him and just dives into him. He's like, ah! And he pushes him into the rubbish.
No, I think Reggie was a better boxer, but Jack just had the weight. Like,
Yeah,
he had the
it's
height and the weight
definitely,
advantage.
Yeah, definitely.
So as you saw at the end of that clip, the cops show up, but again, once again, what a surprise. The cops don't believe Jack is a cop. Like the dykes don't believe he's a cop. The cop doesn't believe he's a cop.
Cops is like, put your hands above your head, and Jack's like, I'm too fucking tired to put my hands above my head.
Yeah, it's like, my gun and my badge is on the car, and he sort of just stumbles off. But it's the cops that were called by the dykes because the dykes, ended up calling the cops on them. So when Jack and Reggie get back in the car, Jack punches him one last time. And they're sort of cleaning up in the gas station bathroom. And Jack wants to know what's going on with Reggie and Gans. He wants a bit more information because Reggie hasn't told him nothing at this stage. But Reggie sort of gives out the information that he was expecting to be paid $500,000 after a job 3 years ago. But one of the bad guys that they were dealing with actually snitched on Reggie, so that's how he ended up in jail. But apparently the money is still in the trunk of Reggie's car, as we'll see later on. And Reggie says, if Gans gets away with the money, you'll be sorry you ever met me. And Jack's like,
This is
I'm really sorry.
then he just floors it.
Yeah.
And Reggie just falls into the back seat of the car.
Because I have to wait till 7 a.m. for the parking garage to open.
Yeah, that's
Imagine
funny
waiting
too.
for a parking garage to open. Like, that's incomprehensible.
Yeah, it seems like it's closed
these
over the
days.
weekend as well. Because
Yeah.
it must have been Saturday when Gans confronted Luther about it, and Luther's like, "You got to wait till Monday." So so it's closed on the weekends.
It's weird.
So in
Yeah.
the 80s, nothing was open 24 hours like it is today.
Yeah, kids
Especially
don't know about
parking garages.
kids don't know about window shopping on the weekend because the shops literally weren't open. Like, it's just incomprehensible. But yeah, we get another funny line.
Jack, tell me a story.
Fuck you.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
I think you could tell, like, Nick Nolte, like, his lip curls at the end of that.
Jack, tell me a story.
Fuck you.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
You can tell his face changes after Eddie says that, and then, like, his lip, like, curls up a little bit. That was hilarious.
I wonder, like, how much of the lines are improvised by Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been pretty funny to be acting with Eddie Murphy back then. Oh, for sure. And so the next morning, Jack went off to get some breakfast from a cafe or whatever, and then he sneaks up to the car and wakes up Reggie by slamming the car door. And then they see Luther across the road walking into the parking garage. And he tries to get into the car that's been there for 3 years. And the guy he's talking to is like, what? You haven't picked up the car for 3 years?
I've been busy.
Yeah, I've been busy. And the car is wait, let me just bring this up. You think it's a Porsche? I think it's a Porsche 356. You think it's a Porsche 356 Speedster? But it's actually a replica.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a Porsche 356 Speedster. It's an extremely expensive car. So it's sort of surprising to see Reggie riding around in it, covered in dust, in this movie. But there you go.
He must have bought it just before he got busted. Like, the money's in the back of the car. He probably
Yeah.
bought it with the money in the back and parked it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So Luther sort of drives off in the car, as Reggie and Jack follow up behind.
Yeah,
And then this
very,
is the
not
scene.
very inconspicuously. Yeah, he pulls
Yeah, not
out.
even, they got a
He pulls out right behind him and, like, right in
in a
front of traffic,
convertible.
and, like, they're all hooting at him. Every scene with that car, it's like driving out of control. Like, every corner he takes, and no
And
wonder
they're
it's
in a
a mess,
convertible.
like,
They can't sneak up on anyone. They're in a convertible. Like, you can see Jack and Reggie in the car. So this is the scene with the same music, like literally the exact same music as Commando. But it was played more often in Commando. So it sort of became like a theme song in a way, for Commando. But and they have some banter back and forth, like Jack's like, "Oh, you got a $500 suit and you're still a lowlife." And then Reggie's like, "Yeah, but I look good." And so Luther parks the car and pulls out the suitcase, which is under a red suit. So Jack starts roasting Reggie about the red suit. And so Luther goes into the train station, and Jack and Reggie obviously follow him as the music plays in the background. And Luther looks really jumpy. Like, he's not relaxed. He's sort of walking around like he's
I didn't even comment about. I was meant to make this comment about not Luther, Gans's fashion. He's wearing like this hand knitted singlets.
Yeah,
You notice that? It's
yeah, like a
hand knitted singlet.
Yeah.
It's it's not. I don't even think that's 80s like fashion.
Yeah.
And he wears like the jacket over it.
Yeah, Gans looked terrible in terms of his fashion in this movie. He looked horrendous.
It's all checking out for that.
Like Billy was
knitted
dressed
singlet.
really well. Like Billy always had his hair done. Like he had a nice jacket. But Gans looked homeless like the whole movie.
He wore the same clothes for the whole movie. But it's only 2 days. But even Billy Bear changed clothes.
Yeah. But it looked like Gans is also on drugs. Like it seems like he was like high on something. Like he's strung out, drug addict or something.
Though there was no drug taking scenes.
Yeah, kind of surprising, really. Okay, what are we up to? Yeah, and so as Luther's like hanging around the train station, Gans shows up. And then Reggie and Jack see Gans, and they like slowly walk over from a distance. But then Gans can see Reggie and Jack because they're actually trying to hide very well. And then Gans, it's like the worst like recon.
Like Jack is like trying to crouch and proceed forward closer. Like trying to hide behind old ladies and stuff.
Yeah, Jack is like 6'2", you know, probably 270, 280, like. And so they sort of chase Gans. They sort of split up, right? So Reggie chases Luther, and Jack chases Gans and Billy and the hostage. And so as Gans and Billy and the hostage get on the train, Jack pulls his gun. And then for a third time, the cops don't think he's a cop. And the plainclothes cops like pull their gun on him once again. And so he can't get a shot off on Gans. But at the same time, like, why are we going to shoot Gans on a busy train station? Like, there are people in the train carriage with
but
Gans.
we already know that he doesn't care.
Yeah, that's why it's a loose cannon. So that's sort of another failed attempt to capture Gans and Luther and Billy. So they failed again, but we sort of cut to one of the black clubs in San Francisco called Romans. And so Reggie's hanging out there because he wants to get some trim. He tries to talk to the women around the bar. They all ignore him. Like even the barman ignores him. It just gives him this terrible stare. Stares him down. But back at the precinct, Jack is alone. He's getting shit on by another cop in the precinct. He's sort of just chain smoking and trying to figure out where Reggie is. And so Jack gets a call from his girlfriend. He yells into the phone, thinking it's Reggie on the phone. That was pretty funny. And then he has to apologize to his girlfriend. And then as he's on the phone, the other cop tells Jack that he got a call from the vice squad or something. And it's Reggie. And so he has to put his girl on hold and talk to Reggie. And Reggie tells him he's at Roman's. And then when he gets back to talking to Elaine hangs up on him. But then Jack has to just speed off to Roman's to make sure Reggie doesn't get away, basically. And so the band in the club, the Romans club, is called the Bus Boys. So they're an actual band. So they play a couple of songs in the movie, including the song over the credits, the ending credits. So it seems like Reggie's having a great time. He's hanging out at the club. But we do get like driving music montage with that band playing in the background. And so we see Reggie interacting with some of the people in the club, including this girl, Candy, because he just comes up to her and says he wants some trim. And she's like, what are you talking about? But he's like, he can't even pay for the hotel room across the road. And then Jack shows up. And so they have a meeting. Now Reggie shows Jack that he's got Jack's gun. But the Jack's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, you've earned it. I think to your point earlier, this is the scene where we get the impression that they sort of come to some sort of agreement with each other, that they have some sort of mutual respect.
Yeah.
They're not yelling at each other anymore, and they sort of understand each other for the first time. Because they've been through so much, they have each other's back. But then Reggie asks Jack for some cash for the hotel room. And so Jack gives him this crumpled up note.
He doesn't have a wallet. It's got this mashed up bundle of notes.
Yeah. And then Reggie goes off to get the girl Candy, but then she's speaking with another guy. And this other guy is way bigger. Way bigger than Reggie. But Reggie, he's so desperate that he stands up to this guy.
Says, why are you talking to my wife?
Yeah. It calls him his wife, yeah. And so they go outside, but then he sees Luther with the money. And so he goes back into the club to get Jack. And so they have to run away. They have to run to try to get Luther. And so Candy's left back at the club. And so Luther, it's at night. So Luther gets on the bus driven by Billy. So on the bus, it's Billy, Gans, and the hostage, which is Luther's girlfriend. And so Luther gets on the bus. He's like, I've got your money. I've got your money, Gans. Here it is. And then he was like to his girlfriend, oh, did he hurt you or whatever? And Gans loses it. He goes crazy. And it just blasts Luther for nothing. So Luther's basically dead at that point. Meanwhile, Jack and Reggie are on the trail of the bus as well. And so they're on the trail of the bus. They're trying to shoot the bus. It's like racing through San Francisco, bashing into each other. But eventually the bus gets away. So they lost Gans once again. Lost Gans and Billy once again. Another failure for these two. And so no surprise that they get yelled at back at the police.
Mr. Cop, you lost the stolen bus! I got 5 deaths related to Gans, and you blow it for a lousy nigger convict! That's right, I call him a nigger, you bet I did! Now this is it for you. Suspension, review board, you've had it! The soldiers will get around you protecting a car rather than the helicopter! God damn it! I'm gonna tell you something about this man. He's got more brains than you ever know.
Don't you think you're being kind of hard on the guy?
You go fuck about yourself, convict!
It's so over the top. It's so funny. He calls Reggie a nigger convict.
That's right. I said it.
That's right. I said it. Oh, that was easily one of the funniest scenes in the movie. And so, and that scene, I guess, prompted the stereotype of the angry police captain as well.
Yeah.
Which we see in other movies and parodies. I think Simpsons did a parody of that, didn't they? They must have. I can't recall it, but not sure. I think maybe for a McBain episode, maybe because it wouldn't be.
I think it was McGonagall.
Oh yeah,
Dirty Harry.
oh yeah, the Dirty Harry one.
Yeah, I think he had because little Timmy or something got killed, and
Yeah.
the captain is like blasting him. McGonagall.
Oh yeah, and Lethal Weapon as well. I guess we should mention Lethal Weapon because Riggs is sort of a similar character to Jack, sort of this out of control, loose cannon, burnt out cop as well. Because we should mention that Lethal Weapon is another buddy cop comedy, but obviously that was a few years afterwards. So, what are we up to? Yeah, so as we saw, Jack actually stands up for Reggie in the precinct, but Jack has to take Reggie back to jail. But before that, Reggie wants to get a drink first. Actually, no, Jack wants to get a drink with Reggie first. And at the bar, in sort of this rundown little bar, Reggie's having a drink while Jack calls the precinct. And there's no leads on the bus or GANs from the airport or the train station. Like there's no leads anywhere from anywhere that they've been throughout the night. And Jack's like, well, maybe we should go back to Billy's girl's place. But Reggie's like, nah, no way. But then I think they come to an agreement that there's probably
Jack's like, okay, then I'll just take you back to your cell then. And then Reggie's like, yeah, we'll go to Chinatown.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Reggie's like, yeah, let's go to Chinatown instead of taking me back to jail. And so Billy's girl, she's been out shopping at the supermarket for Billy and Gans. And so she shows up. And then Jack like grabs her by the throat pretty violently. Like for someone who hasn't actually broken the law, like Jack treats that girl pretty badly. She just chokes her out basically and pulls a gun on her. But it turns out that Billy and Gans are upstairs. And so they sort of go into the apartment with Jack holding the girl as a human shield, basically. And then Reggie like goes into Billy's room and draws his gun. And then Billy pulls his predator knife. So I said it's a predator knife because this whole scene reminded me of Predator. It's sort of like his facial expression and the way he was holding the knife is pretty much the same.
He's like topless as well.
Yeah. Like it's almost I was expecting him to like cut his chest. But it's interesting, like the connections we're making between movies, you know, in this era, that I never knew existed, you know, before we start doing this show. It's one of the more interesting things. So Reggie has no choice but to blast Billy in the chest a few times, and so Billy's dead. But Gans, as he usually does, comes out blasting and manages to escape out the window. And so next we have a great scene, sort of in silence, almost silence, where Jack and Reggie are like walking around the alleyways of Chinatown. Now, luckily, we don't need to imagine this. So I've got a few images here from this particular scene set in Chinatown. So we see Gans running down one of the alleyways. We see the neon signs. Next, some more neon signs and like the mist at night sort of creates this interesting atmosphere, sort of this dark, brooding atmosphere. We see Jack again going down the same alleyway we saw Gans going down before. And then you see the framing of these images as well. How we have like the silhouette against the neon for all three characters. And then this great shot, like one of the shots of the movie of Eddie Murphy in profile, and then the neon sign in the background. So just really interesting. Oh wait, are you seeing all this stuff?
It's still on the first picture with the
There's-
neon lights.
Why can't it?
I think it's Gans. Yeah.
automatically. I have to do all of it separately. Jeez. Okay, let's do it separately then. So we see this neon shot with the mist in the alleyways. And then with Jack silhouetted against the neon signs like Gans was before. And then again, a similar aesthetic to the other two shots where you have Reggie silhouetted against the neon signs in the alleyway. And then this great shot of Reggie against the backdrop of the neon signs as well. So it's just excellent framing throughout the movie in the external shots. This really interesting artistic imagery throughout the movie. So Reggie stumbles, and Gans has him at gunpoint. Sort of takes him as a human shield, basically. And so Gans calls out to Jack, like, Jack, where are you? Then Gans says, he has everything, but Jack has no chance. But then Jack like comes up, and then just without any hesitation, just comes up and like shoots Gans in the chest. So usually for these types of situations where you have a hostage, you would expect the bad guy to get shot in the head, but in this case, Gans actually gets shot in the chest. And he tries to run away, but Jack blows him away.
No, I feel like he tried to charge at Jack.
Yeah, that's right. Charge.
But instead of like changing, because I felt like he got shot in like the left chest shoulder area, and so that left his left arm useless. Yeah, so instead of swapping gun hands, he charges Jack, and Jack just unloads a clip into him.
Yeah. So actually, Jack, we should talk about Jack's gun. So I think it was maybe I don't know if it's a Magnum. I don't think it was a Eddie Murphy. I mean, Dirty Harry Magnum, but it was like a 6-shooter of some sort. I think those guns are pretty strong in Call of Duty. Or no, I think it's just a 357 in Call of Duty.
I think it must be like
one of those
Smith and Wesson type.
Yeah, gun. Like
we're not like gun experts in Australia. We're not allowed to have guns.
But
unless it's like something obvious like an AK or like an M60 or M16 or something. Yeah, our
it's something we see over and over again. Yeah,
pistol knowledge isn't the best.
Games, so
but
it's
definitely not like a big one of those Magnums or a Desert Eagle or anything like that. definitely an older style hand cannon.
Yeah, one of those old-fashioned cop six shooters you see in the 80s over and over again. Sort of a cliched type of gun. So Gans gets blown away. So they finally get their guy. So we cut to Reggie leaving Candy's apartment. So he finally gets some trim. While Jack waits outside. Jack's like, "How did you go?" Reggie's like, "I did good. Maybe I should have my dick bronzed." Yeah. So Reggie's finally like relaxed. He finally got what he needed. After 3 years, and so so they have to talk about the money. They have to talk about what happens next. And so Jack is like, "Reggie, you can have your money, but you need to do the 6 months that's left on your bid. And so you can get the money when you come out." And so Reggie's surprised, like, "Oh, okay, interesting. I'm
You
surprised."
know
But
what?
then
None
Jack
of
is,
it.
yeah. But then Jack is like, you know what? Maybe I need to loan a couple of thousand for a new car, a convertible." And Reggie's like, "Yeah, I'm going to be an honest man from now on." But he thinks that Jack couldn't catch him. If they had to encounter each other again, and then he like tries to steal Jack's lighter, but Jack's like onto him, and so they sort of drive off in night as the Boys in Back in Town plays over the credits, and that's it. Another 90-minute movie from the 80s. I definitely appreciate the 90-minute runtime, like with Rocky 4.
It felt like even with Rocky as well. It just felt like it was shorter. It's such a the movie just it came and went so quickly. I just feel like just because it's so entertaining and action packed
Yeah,
and like laugh filled.
yeah. No, definitely highly entertaining. As long as you're not offended by some of the language, which you shouldn't be. I mean, really grow up if you're offended by words. But yeah, 48 Hours, another excellent movie from the 80s, from our childhood. It seems like every single movie we review, not really review, but discuss every single week, is something interesting, wonderful, unexpected, something important and significant within the context of film, especially within our lives. So it just gets more and more fulfilling to do these shows every time. So what's your final comments or impressions of 48 Hours?
It was lots of fun revisiting this classic. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's just so much fun, like just fun. Yeah. Eddie Murphy. It's his. I think it's his like big screen debut, and he definitely didn't disappoint. He left his mark, and yeah, it's definitely worth checking out for him and Nick Nolte. They really like had some like great chemistry in this movie, and like lots of laughs to be had. It's definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's like they're opposite characters, but they like grow to respect each other. But it's sort of there's conflict that exists between them naturally that creates like this tension that creates the comedy as well. I think there's a lot of comedy comes from tension. And so the tension is just in the fact that one's a cop, one's a criminal, and there's already like this sort of they're sort of on tender hooks. Like something could happen at any time that would lead to a fight or to some sort of racial insult. But
It's definitely up there with like
yeah,
maybe top 3 buddy cop movies of all time. Possibly,
oh, for sure.
yeah. Because I think of possibly Lethal Weapon as being like my favorite buddy cop movie But
Yeah.
I feel like as we go along and we talk about other movies, there's going to be more buddy cop movies that's going to pop up and
Mm.
that we're going to be talking about.
No, absolutely. But yeah, Lethal Weapon is definitely right up there. Like we talked about how Lethal Weapon sort of blew us away in terms of how good it was, you know.
How good it was
see it
and,
as,
and still
yeah,
is, like watching it again
yeah,
recently. It's just so
yeah,
entertaining. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, we recommend every movie on the list, but within the context of an 80s action buddy cop, I mean, you can watch Lethal Weapon in 48 hours back to back and, you know, have a lot of fun for sure. So, thank you to everyone for tuning in. We'll be back in 2 weeks with. I got the need for Top Gun in 2 weeks.
You got the aviator sunglasses ready.
That's right. So our first Tom Cruise movie. We can't have the 80s without Tom Cruise, so we're gonna experience what that's like. I'm gonna play some volleyball in the meantime on the beach, in short shorts and shirtless, of course, and do some karaoke in a bar. Ride a motorcycle or two. You know, just buy a leather jacket. Actually, Tom Cruise had a really cool jacket. You should check out my thumbnail for that. You can see
Yeah, he
Tom
had all
Cruise's
those
jacket. It's really
all
cool.
those aviation military badges all over it. That was pretty sick.
Yeah, it's a pretty sick jacket. Maybe I should try to find it. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'll see everyone next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And one final toast to 48 hours. Chink, chink. See everyone later.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Laters.
Cheers. Cheers.